December is supposed to feel warm, safe, and magical. But what if I told you that some of the darkest, most unsettling true encounters happen during this month, when the nights stretch longest, the cold grows meanest, and people let their guard down in the glow of holiday lights? Imagine this. You're walking home, the world quiet under a heavy blanket of snow, when you notice footprints appearing behind you, even though no one is there. Or you're driving through a small town decorated with cheerful lights, only to realize a shadowy figure is following your car from street to street, never close enough to see clearly, but always there. December hides things. It hides intentions, it hides strangers, and sometimes it hides horrors that come alive when the cold makes everything else slow and silent. And that is exactly what tonight's video uncovers: 3 terrifying true stories that happened in the heart of December. Before we dive into them, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt watched on a winter night? That quiet, eerie sense that something is just out of sight, waiting, tracking, moving when you move? If you have, you're not alone. The people in these stories felt the same right before their lives changed forever. Tonight, we're exploring real December encounters involving isolated cabins buried in snow, highways swallowed by blizzards, and small towns that seem peaceful until nightfall reveals what really moves in the dark. These aren't the stories about ghosts or folklore. These are real events experienced by real people who still can't explain what happened to them. So sit back, turn off the lights, and let the winter chill sink in. Because by the end of these stories, you might start seeing December the way they do. Not as a festive month, but as a quiet, beautiful trap where something terrifying can slip into your life without a single sound. Ready? Let's go into the cold together. Just don't look behind you. December has a strange way of making the world feel both peaceful and unsettling at the same time. The early sunsets, the quiet streets, the breath turning into mist, it all creates a calm that can very easily turn into fear when something feels off. And for 17-year-old Ethan, December would become the month he would never forget. A month that would change winter, windows, and even the sound of snow forever. It started the first week of December, on a night when the cold felt sharper than usual. Ethan was home alone. His parents were out of town for a weekend business trip, leaving him in charge of the house. He didn't mind. He actually enjoyed the silence, until silence began feeling like something watching him. The house sat at the edge of a neighborhood, where the streetlights were spaced far apart, leaving long stretches of darkness between each one. From his living room window, Ethan could see the empty road, often covered in a thin white layer of frost, and the tall, leafless trees standing stiffly like frozen skeletons. But on that night, even the usual winter scenery felt tense, as if the world outside was holding its breath. He had been up late, scrolling on his phone when it happened. It started with the sound of footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, crunching lightly over the icy snow. Ethan muted his phone and froze. The footsteps didn't belong to any neighbor he knew. He looked at the time. 12:41 a.m. No one in this neighborhood walked around at this hour, not during winter, when the cold could cut through even the thickest jacket. He leaned back, trying not to make a sound, and waited. The footsteps stopped, right outside the living room window. Ethan's heart began pounding, loud enough that he was scared whatever was outside could hear it. He slowly peeked through the gap between the curtains, and what he saw made his stomach twist so hard he almost dropped to the floor. A man stood on the sidewalk, facing the house, not moving, not blinking, just staring directly at the window, directly at Ethan. The man's clothing didn't make sense. He wore thin, worn-out pants and what looked like a button-up shirt completely wrong for the freezing temperature. His skin was pale, almost gray under the dim streetlight, and his hair hung down wet, as if frozen water dripped through it. But the worst part? The man had the biggest smile Ethan had ever seen. Too big, too wide, like someone trying to mimic a smile without knowing how it works. Ethan stumbled backward, hitting the couch behind him. He shut the curtain quickly and grabbed his phone with shaking hands. He didn't call his parents. They were 6 hours away. Instead, he called the police. They said a patrol car would come by soon. He went upstairs, locked himself in his room, and waited. The next morning, an officer told him they found nothing. No footprints. No signs of anyone standing outside the window at all. Ethan didn't believe them. That night, he moved a chair near the window so he could check the curtains quickly if he needed to. He left just a small gap, enough to peek out. Around 12:30 a.m., the footsteps returned. But this time, they weren't slow. They were pacing, back and forth, back and forth. Ethan's breathing tightened. He leaned toward the curtain, barely parting it. The man was there again, now closer, standing on the walkway leading up to the house. His smile looked even wider, like the skin around his mouth was stretching. Ethan ducked immediately, heart slamming against his chest. He crawled away from the window, hyperventilating. After 10 minutes of silence, he forced himself to look again. The man was gone. Ethan didn't sleep the rest of the night. By the third night, Ethan felt trapped in his own room. He barricaded his bedroom door, kept the lights off, and stayed upstairs. He knew the man, whatever he was, would return. And he did. At 12:39 a.m., Ethan heard the footsteps again. But they were not outside this time. They were on the porch, slow, heavy, careful, approaching the front door. Ethan grabbed his phone, ready to call the police again, but something stopped him. A faint tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from downstairs, from the kitchen, from the back window. Ethan froze. Then the tapping stopped. A long silence followed. And then, tap, tap, tap. Now from the living room window. Then, tap, tap, from the dining room sliding door. It wasn't random. It was moving around the house, like the man was testing every window. Ethan's body shook uncontrollably. He backed into a corner, squeezing his phone so tight his hand hurt. Then the footsteps came again. This time, they were inside the house. At least, that's what it sounded like. They echoed up the stairs, slow, careful, as though someone was pressing their weight on each step. Ethan scrambled to the window in his room, planning to jump out onto the small patch of snow below if he had to. But when he looked outside, his blood went cold. The man was standing in the yard. How was that possible? Footsteps upstairs? But the man outside, what was making the noise? Ethan stumbled back, horrified. Then the window fogged. Not from Ethan's breath, but from someone breathing on the outside glass. He stared at the foggy surface for one terrifying second before a shape formed. A handprint, pressed from the inside. Ethan nearly fainted. Someone or something was in his room. He turned slowly, his breath trembling. Standing in the corner of the room was a second figure. Long arms, bent posture, its skin sagging like wet cloth. It wasn't the smiling man. It was something worse. Something that looked like it had been following the smiling man, or created by him. Ethan backed toward the window, ready to jump. But the figure didn't move. Instead, it lifted a long, crooked finger and pointed toward the yard, to the smiling man. The man's head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if his neck was made of stiff rope. Then he lifted his hand and waved at Ethan, and the smile grew. Ethan screamed and hit the floor, covering his head. When he opened his eyes again, everything was gone. No figure in the room, no man in the yard, no handprint on the window. His parents arrived the next morning to find Ethan shaking, exhausted, and barely able to speak. To this day, he refuses to sleep near a window. He refuses to be alone in December. and whenever the temperature drops low enough for his breath to fall, he swears he can see that smile again, but only for a second, just long enough to remind him the man in the December window is still out there. As we descend into tonight's chilling tale, take a moment to prepare yourself. And if you're visiting this channel for the first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon. Your support helps us bring you deeper into the shadows and ensures you never miss a single terrifying story again. Now, take a deep breath, because the darkness is waiting. Story 2. The storm had rolled in faster than anyone expected. Thick December snow hammering the long stretch of rural highway like the sky itself was collapsing. Emma Caldwell tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her knuckles pale as bone as her wipers fought a losing battle against the sheet of white. She was driving home for an early family gathering, hoping to beat the weather warnings. Instead, she ended up in one of the worst blizzards her state had seen in years. The world outside her windshield looked like static white, shifting, endless, making the road ahead fade in and out like a dying signal. Yet even through the chaos of snow and wind, she kept getting the spine-chilling impression that she wasn't alone on the road. Emma leaned forward, squinting, as a dark shape flickered at the edge of the highway. It was too tall for anything human, and the silhouette seemed to slightly bend, like something made of shadow instead of flesh. Just as she focused on it, the windshield fogged, forcing her to wipe it with her sleeve. When it cleared, the figure was gone. Her stomach tightened. She tried to rationalize lights reflecting on something, a tree branch, her imagination. But the unease lingered, threading itself through her like ice water. A few miles down, her phone buzzed violently in the Q folder. She flinched so hard the car jerked. A notification. She grabbed it, expecting a weather alert. Instead, the screen displayed a message she didn't recognize. Don't slow down. It sees you. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. Immediately, she checked if the sender was a contact nothing. No name, no number, just a blank sender ID. She dropped the phone like it burned. Her breathing turned ragged. She knew she should pull over, calm herself, but the storm had swallowed the road shoulders completely, burying them under a wall of snow. She couldn't stop even if she wanted to. The shadow returned. This time she saw it clearly. A humanoid figure pacing the highway, its limbs long and stick-thin, its posture slouched, like it had spent years dragging itself through darkness. It moved with unnatural speed, appearing ahead of her car, vanishing, then reappearing closer, each time edging into her peripheral vision, like it was studying her. "Please, just let me get home," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Another message flashed on her phone. She didn't want to look, but her eyes dragged toward it like something inside her already knew she had to. Right lane, now. Her pulse thundered. She didn't think, she just obeyed. She swerved slightly right. A second later, a massive falling tree trunk slammed onto the left lane with explosive force, shattering across the asphalt where her car had been seconds before. Emma gasped, her chest constricting in terror. The message had saved her, or was it guiding her? The thought unsettled her even more. She pressed harder on the gas, desperate to reach the next exit. The highway signs were half buried, barely readable through the storm. Her headlights reflected off the swirling snow, creating a tunnel of white that made the world feel claustrophobic. The feeling of being watched intensified until it felt physical, like eyes were crawling across her skin. Then the radio dead for hours due to the storm crackled to life. At first, it was static. Then a distorted whisper pushed through the noise, stretching in and out like it was coming from a great distance. "Don't. Stop the car. Don't let it in." Emma's eyes widened. "Hello? Who is this?" She shouted, her voice cracking. The whisper sharpened, turning into multiple voices, layered together, male, female, Young, old, like dozens of people were speaking the same words at once. It follows anyone who drives alone. Anyone who looks too long. Don't. Emma looked away from the windows instinctively, forcing her focus on the road. But her curiosity clawed at her. She checked the side mirror just for a second. She shouldn't have. The creature was there, running beside her car. Its hollow eyes glowed a faint, icy blue, like the last light of a dying star. Its limbs were long enough to nearly reach the roof, bending backward in unnatural angles, as if its bones were not meant for this world. Its face was featureless, except for the eyes, two unblinking orbs locked directly onto hers. Emma screamed, jerking the wheel. The car fishtailed on the ice, but regained balance. She refused to look again, but she felt its presence pressing against her car door, keeping pace with her, no matter how fast she drove. A new message buzzed. Her hands shook as she raised the phone. Exit now. She spotted the ramp barely in time, a faint shape through the storm. She turned sharply, tires sliding. The creature lunged toward the car, slamming into the passenger side with a metallic thud. The entire car shuddered. Emma shrieked, but kept going, speeding down the exit ramp, praying the creature couldn't follow her off the main highway. Once she reached the bottom, the phone buzzed again. Left. There was no road, just a snow-covered service path used by emergency vehicles. But instinct overtook logic. She turned left. The car bumped violently over uneven ground, snow spraying up around her windows until she could see nothing at all. She feared she'd crash into a ditch or barrier, but instead, the terrain leveled out. The phone buzzed once more. Stop. She slammed on the brakes. Silence. The storm still howled outside, but something in the air had changed. The crushing sense of being watched was gone. The creature, for now, seemed to have vanished. Emma sat shaking, breath fogging the cabin, heart thundering as she waited for another message, another warning. The screen remained blank. Minutes passed. Her breathing steadied. Slowly, she reached for the door handle just to look outside, to confirm nothing was out there. The phone lit up. Don't, she froze. Who are you? She whispered. No answer. She looked around helplessly, unsure of what to do. Her headlights reflected a wall of swirling white that made the world look empty, unreal, like she'd slipped out of reality and into some endless winter dimension. Then, through the silence, she heard a faint tapping. Not from outside. From the passenger window. Tap, tap, tap. Emma's heart stopped. She turned slowly, terrified, but compelled until her eyes met the glass. The creature's face was right there, nearly pressed against the window. The eyes were brighter now, burning blue, illuminating the swirling snow like twin lanterns. The creature's mouth stretched open in a silent scream, revealing rows of jagged black teeth, impossible teeth. Too many teeth, wrong in every way. Emma jolted back, scrambling across the seat as the window began to crack hairline fractures, spreading like icy lightning. Her phone buzzed again, violently. She snatched it. One word. Run. She didn't think. She grabbed her keys, shoved open her door, and sprinted into the storm, the wind slicing her face like frozen knives. Behind her, she heard the sound of shattering glass and a bone-chilling shriek that rose above the storm and human hungry. She ran blindly, feet slipping on ice, lungs burning from the cold. Then she saw lights dim but real. A small service station building half buried under snow. She bolted toward it, practically crashing through the door. Inside, a lone attendant stared at her, stunned. Ma'am? Are you hurt? Emma couldn't speak. She collapsed against the counter, sobbing, pointing toward the exit ramp. The man rushed outside, but returned moments later, pale and confused. There's nothing out there, he whispered. Just the storm. Emma didn't argue. She didn't want to know if he was wrong. An hour later, emergency services were able to reach the station. They escorted her back to the road. Her car was found abandoned, but untouched. The passenger window wasn't broken. No footprints in the snow. No signs of anything having followed her, except her phone still showed the messages. Every single one. But the sender now read, unknown, no contact found. No message history found. No record of received texts. Like the warnings had never existed. Emma never drove alone at night, again especially not in December. And sometimes, on cold winter evenings when the wind howls hard enough to shake the house, she swears she hears the tapping again. Tap, 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 and she closes all the curtains before the eyes can find her. Story 3. There is a certain kind of cold in December. It feels less like weather and more like a warning and icy whisper brushing against your neck, reminding you that the world becomes a different place after dark. And for 28-year-old Daniel Hart, that warning would come far too late. Daniel lived in rural Vermont, tucked between miles of bare trees, iced-over fields, and long stretches of unlit road. He worked from home, enjoyed the quiet, and always joked that the middle of nowhere was exactly where he wanted to be. But December had been strange that year. Strange enough that Daniel had mentioned it to his sister on the phone, how the woods seemed to watch back, how he'd been hearing crunching snow outside at night, and how he kept finding faint footprints near the back porch. But he brushed it off. Probably deer, he said. His sister only told him to buy a camera. He didn't. On December 19th, the cold was especially bitter, sharp enough to burn your lungs. That night, around 11:45 p.m., Daniel was on his couch watching a documentary, wrapped in a blanket, the window beside him slightly fogged from the temperature difference. Everything was peaceful until a quiet rhythmic sound echoed outside. Crunch. 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 Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. The kind of footsteps it absolutely weren't from a deer. Daniel muted the TV. The footsteps stopped. Silence swallowed the house. He waited, heart thudding softly. After almost 30 seconds of stillness, he convinced himself he'd imagined it and reached for the remote. Then came a sound that turned his blood to ice. 3 knocks, slow, measured, on his bedroom window. Daniel froze. No one ever came to his house at night, and especially not to the bedroom window unless they came through the woods. He stood up quietly and killed the living room lights. The house sank into darkness. He didn't go to the bedroom. Something instinct, fear, primal impulse told him not to get close. Instead, he crossed to the hallway and listened. A soft voice whispered through the wall. Low, hoarse, almost playful. I see you in there. Open up. Daniel's breath hitched. He stepped backward, hands shaking. The voice whispered again, closer now. It's cold out here. He nearly bolted out the back door, but remembered the woods. If someone was outside, he could be anywhere behind trees, near the shed, or watching from the dark. Calling the police made more sense. But when Daniel pulled out his phone, the screen stayed black. It had battery fully charged, but it wouldn't turn on. He pressed the button again. Nothing. He felt a wave of dread spread through him like poison. It wasn't the cold. It wasn't panic. It was the realization that something was very wrong with that December night. Then a new sound crept in the unmistakable drag of something heavy across the snowy porch. A long scraping noise like a boot or something else, something being pulled. Daniel backed away. His house creaked. The bedroom window rattled, as if someone pressed their forehead against it. Let me in, just for a minute. I'm freezing. Daniel almost shouted out of fear, but he clamped his hand over his mouth. Whatever was outside, it didn't sound right. The way the voice scraped at the end of each word, raw and uneven, as if the person hadn't spoken in years. The window rattled harder. A fingernail dragged across the glass, screeching, slow and too long to be normal. Daniel felt bile rise in his throat. He ran to his small coat closet, pulled out an old wooden baseball bat, and backed into the hallway again. The house was pitch dark, except for moonlight filtering through the blinds. The temperature seemed to drop. He could see his own breath fogging in the air. Then came a new voice from the other side of the house. A different window. A whisper that mimicked his sister's voice perfectly. "Danny, let them in." His chest tightened violently. That voice didn't belong here. His sister lived over 600 miles away. Two voices now. One stranger, one familiar, but not. Both whispering through the walls, overlapping in a slow, eerie rhythm. "Let me in, let me in." In. Daniel stumbled backward, panicking, trying to find the courage to run outside. The cold woods seemed safer than this. But before he could decide, the entire house seemed to inhale, then exhale a long, hollow creak. The front door handle began to twist. Softly at first, then violently. Someone was trying to come inside. Daniel screamed and sprinted to the kitchen, slamming his back against the counter as the door thudded under force. "Stop," he yelled, voice cracking. "I've called the police." A lie, but all he had. For the first time, the house went completely silent. Then, a whisper came from right outside the door. Low, deep, wrong. "You didn't." Daniel didn't breathe. A slow scrape dragged down the length of the front door, followed by soft, deliberate footsteps moving away, toward the back of the house. No, the back door didn't have a deadbolt. Daniel ran faster than he'd ever moved, cutting through the hallway, nearly slipping on the floor. He reached the back door just in time to slam the deadbolt down. Something hit the other side a second later, hard, and again, and again. The door shook violently with each blow. Daniel screamed for help, praying a neighbor would hear, but his nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. The blows kept coming until, suddenly, they stopped. Silence, not peaceful, unnatural. Daniel stood there for 2 full minutes, gripping the bat, sweat freezing on his skin, waiting for the next hit. But nothing happened. Just the sound of snow settling on the roof. Slowly, terrified but needing to know, he approached the small window above the sink. He hesitated, took a shaky breath, and lifted the bottom corner of the curtain. Nothing, just the empty snow-covered backyard. Then, right as he began lowering the curtain, a face appeared. Not a normal face, pale, stretching unnaturally high against the window. Hollow eyes, lips cracked and blue, and a too wide smile carved across its face, as if the skin had split while pulling upward. It whispered, too close to the glass. "I found you." Daniel dropped the curtain, stumbled backward, and fell to the floor. He grabbed the bat and swung wildly at the empty air, choking on sobs. The thing at the window didn't knock, didn't bang. It simply stood there, watching. The house grew colder. The lights flickered, buzzing with a low hum. Daniel crawled backward toward the hallway, shaking violently. Then, footsteps on the roof, slow, heavy, crossing from one end to the other above him. Daniel bolted to the bathroom, locked the door, and curled into the corner. He stayed there for hours listening. The footsteps, the whispers outside the walls, the scraping along the windows. He didn't sleep. He didn't move. He just waited for daylight. When morning finally came, he crept out. The house was empty, quiet, normal, except for the footprints outside. Hundreds of them, circling the house, leading to every window, up the porch, even across the roof. All barefoot. Daniel moved out that same day. He never spent another night alone in December again. And he still wonders, if he had opened the door, would it have stopped whispering? Or would something else have come in? As we reach the end of tonight's journey into these 3 chilling December horror stories, take a moment to breathe. Because if there's one thing these experiences remind us, it is that the darkness of winter isn't just in the cold air or the long nights. It is in the moments when the world goes quiet, when the roads empty out, when the snow falls so softly that even danger can slip through unnoticed. December is supposed to be a month of warmth, family, and celebration. But for the people in these stories, it became a month they will never forget. A month where something in the shadows decided to step forward. Whether it was a voice calling from the forest, a figure watching from the ice, or a presence moving through a house that should have been empty. These stories prove that the cold isn't the only thing that can reach inside you. Fear can too. And it can freeze you in place just as easily as any winter storm. If any part of tonight's stories made your heart race, your skin crawl, or your imagination wander to those long December nights, make sure to let me know in the comments. Tell me which story shook you the most. Or if you've ever had your own winter experience that still keeps you awake sometimes. Your stories help keep this community alive, and they remind others that they are not alone in the strange things they've seen. And if you're new here, welcome to Apex Stories Hub, where every week we dive into the real experiences people wish they could forget. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we explore the kind of darkness you can always explain, but you can definitely feel. Before you go, remember this. Winter has a way of hiding things. Footprints vanish, sound gets swallowed, and the dark comes earlier than you expect. So, whether you're walking alone at night, driving down a quiet highway, or just staring out at the snow, trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Stay warm, stay aware, and above all, stay safe this December. Because sometimes, the scariest part of winter isn't the cold. It's what's waiting in it. Good night, and until the next story.